Hello guys. Well, I've gotten a lot of feedback from you on the video I did on how to update your Excel dashboard with a mobile app. A lot of people have shown a lot of interest, and I think based on that, I'm going to create a series on how you can use spreadsheets to create mobile apps. I'm going to take you through several means and several ways you can create several applications with AppSheet. So please join me in this series as I take you through the very first app you're going to learn how to build, which is your own personal finance app called the Money Matters app. So join me, let's go through this process. So this is our mobile app. This is the Money Matters app we're using to try and introduce ourselves to AppSheet. Now in this app, we have just 3 sheets. We have a summary page that shows your income and expenditure for the month in question. Currently, we are in October 2022. So we have October 2022 over there as a header. We have income, the amount we have in income. We have expenditure, and we have our gain, which is 29 Ghana cedis, right, or whatever currency you're working with. Then in the other sheet, we have what we call transaction sheets, where we have a breakdown of all transactions that are income related and all transactions that are expenditure related. So over here, you see the details of every transaction. We have the expenditures as well. We also have these buttons over here. We call them the action buttons. When I click on this button, it's supposed to do something within the app. So when I click on this, it takes me to another view called the calendar view. That shows me the same transactions I've recorded, but this time in a calendar view. And I also have the option of going back to September, August to see other transactions related to the app. So in the table view, when I click this, I come back to the table view. I only see transactions relating within this month. And in the calendar view, I see transactions relating to all periods. You have the plus button that allows you to enter new transactions. So when I click the plus button, I open a form. I can enter a new expenditure, select the category, let's say it's a work-related expenditure. Let's say mode of payment, mobile money, trip to registrar's office. And I indicate the amount, let's say it's 100 cedis, and I save that. So this goes automatically and increase the expenditure, and that should also affect my summary page. So the last page I have is the modes page. So in the modes page, you have the various modes of payment. We have mobile money, we have cash, bank, and mobile money. Now if I double click on any of this, it will give me a breakdown of that mode of payment. So my current balance, the start balance, total flows, total outflows. It shows me all cash receipts, so all cash inflows are recorded over here, all cash payments, which are the total outflows, are recorded over here, which allows you to kind of better understand these figures you see up here, which are the summary. So when I click on this arrow, I get the information for bank and I get the information for mobile money. So this is the journey, this is what we want to do, and hopefully at the end of this series you should be able to build your very own personal finance app, and then I hope it goes a long way to help you in your personal activities. So let's go. Okay, so we're going to start off with our browser. In my case, I'm using Google Chrome. So the first thing we need to do is to create an account for AppSheet. It's very simple to do. All you need to do is go to any browser and you search for AppSheet. Log in. Okay, so once you get into AppSheet login, all you need to do is click on Google AppSheet, build apps with no code. So this is the home page of AppSheet, and it talks about all the latest things about AppSheet, pricing, resources, templates. To create an account, all you need to do is click on Get Started. Okay, now what AppSheet wants to know is which accounts are you signing in with? Are you signing in with a Google account, a Microsoft account, an Apple, DropBox, Spreadsheet, Box, or Salesforce? Because this will be dependent on where your data is coming from. Okay, so currently I'm using a Microsoft account, but I also have registered that Microsoft account as a Google account. So I have the option of selecting either Google account or Microsoft account. Okay, so I'm going to select a Google account. So that's what I want to use. So over here, I'm going to select the account I'm using. I'm using this. Okay, you actually want access to your Google account. So you're supposed to allow us actually to be able to see and edit in your Google Drive, because that's where the database is going to be. So allow, and that's it. You are done. There you go. So this is how you create an AppSheet account. So we have our AppSheet account. This is where you create recent, you share, owned by me templates. Currently we have no apps, but then we're going to be creating some. So to create our mobile application that we're about to create in this session, what we need to do is we're going to start off by creating a spreadsheet in our Google Drive. So as good practice, I always recommend that when creating your app, the first thing you need to do is to create a folder for that app. Okay, so if you are going to create an app based on a Google Sheet, I always advise that you start by creating a folder for in your Google Drive for that particular Google Sheet. And you place the Google Sheet in that folder. If you are doing the same with an Excel online document on your OneDrive, then you create a folder in your OneDrive, and then you start by creating an Excel document in that OneDrive folder. So in this case, I'm going to be creating my Money Matters app with a Google Sheet. So I'm in my Google Drive over here. What I'm going to do is create a new folder. So new folder here. I'm going to call this Money Matters. I'm going to create this. So in my Money Matters app, I go into my Money Matters app, and now I create a Google Sheet. Okay, so that Google Sheet is going to reside in this folder. So in any event when I need to find this particular spreadsheet, I know where to go to. In any event when I add certain attachments to the app, they will all be located in this folder. So it makes it easy to locate items relating to my app. So once your spreadsheet is open, the first thing you do is you name your spreadsheet. So Money Matters database. This is going to be the database for our Money Matters app. Okay, with this in place, now we can go ahead and then we can now start creating the various fields for our transactions. So let me name this sheet as my transactions table. So this is going to be my transactions table. Okay, now what are the kind of fields or columns I want to see in my transaction? So for a typical transaction I record, I want to know the dates. I want to know the transaction type. Is it an income or an expense? I want to know the category. So is it a social, personal, academic expense or income related line? I want to get more details. I want to have a line where I can put more details. So if it's academic, I want to see what exactly it's academic related. Maybe I'm incurring a cost to print my research work, something of that sort. And I also want to see the amount. Okay, and also maybe the mode of payments. I don't know. So you are at liberty to include every line you want to see in your table. So I'm going to start with dates, and then the next thing I'm going to do is to look at the type of the transaction. Then I want to look at the category. Then I want to look at probably, let's say, the details, and then I want to see the mode of payment. So how am I going to make payment? Is it from my bank account? Is it from my cash? And then the amounts. Okay, so these are the various lines that are going to be my headers for my table. Now in every app in AppSheet, you need to have a column that has unique entries to be your key. Okay, so they are the unique identifiers of each column. Taking a look at these columns, I can tell that none of them is going to be a unique entry column. Okay, the date, I'm likely to have 2 or 3 transactions in a day. Mode of payment or type is just going to be income or expenditure, so that's not unique. Category is not going to be unique either. Details might be unique, but I don't want to take the risk. Mode of payment, amount. So what I need to do in the instance where I don't have any unique column I can make my key is to create a special column for that purpose. So I'm going to insert a column to my left. We call this ID. Okay, so this is like the transaction ID for this particular table. Okay, so now that I have this in place, there are actually 2 ways I can get this data into AppSheet. Okay, one way is to do it directly from Google Sheets and just transfer it to AppSheet and start my building over there. Or the long way is to go to your AppSheet account and click create and create from there. So I'm going to show you both ways so you can choose. So in my AppSheet account, this is where the magic starts from. So over here, you have your create button, which you use to create your apps. You have your apps segmented into recent, shared with me, owned by a template. This is basically just like all other Google platforms like Google Drive. They all have this kind of layout, so it makes it easy for you to kind of relate with them. So once I click create over here, it asks me create an app. Yes, I want to start with an existing data I have. So I'll click on start with an existing data. The first thing it asks for is the name of your app. So my name is Money Matters. Okay, and then you can choose a category, which is not really compulsory, but then let's just choose other for now. And let's choose our data. So my data is coming from a Google Sheet. You can also have it coming from your Microsoft OneDrive. That also works. Or you can add a new data source. So once this is in place, then the first thing I need to do is navigate to where my app is. So I have my app in app development, AppSheet with spreadsheets, and then I think I have Money Matters app here. So once I do this, I just select this and I click select, and then from there it just loads my data. The other way you can do this is once you are in the spreadsheet and you have a Google you have an AppSheet account, you come to extensions, you come to AppSheet and create an app. I think this is very simple. I don't need to go out of Google Sheets to do this process, so I really prefer that. But both of them will lead you to this point, so any of them works. So once we click that, here we come to AppSheet trying to set up a new account. It's trying to create a new app for us, so it's going to use the data we have in our spreadsheet to create this. Now this is just a one table app, so this should be just pretty simple. I'm going to take it easy, just try and understand the environment of AppSheet, and then from there we move on. So this is the AppSheet environment. First thing we're going to do is try and go around, try and understand what we have around here, and then we will move on from there. Okay, so the first I'm going to talk about are these are the main tabs of your AppSheet editor. Okay, so we have deployment, we have data, we have app, we have actions, we have automations, we have errors and warnings, you have intelligence, you have security, you have settings, and then I think you have manage over here as well. Okay, now these tabs can be expanded or closed with this icon. So over here you have the expanded version where you can see everything, or you can choose to close it up this way. Good. And then you can ask for help. So this will direct you to the AppSheet community and to documentations on various parts of AppSheet that can give you guidance on what to do. This will show you your apps. So clicking on this is just going to take you to all your apps that you've created so far. This is the share button that you use to share. This is the undo and redo. Then we have save. So whilst you are working, it's very important that you save from time to time. And then this is your account, and then this just gives you access to templates, pricing, blogs, customers, and then partners. Okay, now let's go through the various tabs and let's try and understand what we have over there. So this just shows you whether your app is deployed or not. Now, to deploy your app means is to be able to share it to multiple people, more than 10 people to be precise. Less than 10, you can use the app for free and you don't need to deploy it. But then it has certain restrictions, like you can't allow the app to send emails and so on and so forth. So if you need the app to be able to send emails, invoices, and all those things, you pretty much will need to deploy your app. And you can check the pricing on AppSheet to do that. Then we have the home page. So the home page just gives you suggestions you can take, ideas on certain things you can do with the kind of data you have. Info gives you an idea of what your app is about. So currently my app is called Money Matters Database, which comes from the spreadsheet's name. I can edit the logo, which is this. I'm going to do that later on. When I click on edit name, app properties, I'm going to edit the name over here. So it's just the Money Matters app.
the Money Matters app, like that. And once I do that, you see currently my version is 0002. When I click save, it's increased by 1, and then the save has gone in place. So every save you make is a new version of the app. Okay, so that's that for this point. It talks about earlier versions, performance, and all that. Basically, general information about your app. Same goes with this place as well. This is where you find all the errors. If you make an error in your app development, you're going to get the information over here. And then this is your something like your data model. Okay, giving a graphical view of the kind of tables you have. So you're likely to have tables as squares over here, blue squares, and then your views for those tables as orange circles. So currently I have one table that has been used to create one view. Okay, now the next view is data. The next tab is data, and that table data, we have tables, we have columns, we have slices, user setting, and option. The key tabs over here, or the ones I use often, are tables, columns, and slices. Tables are basically your sheets in your database. In this case, I have just one table, which is transaction. When I come to columns, it gives me access to the various headers in that sheet. So you have ID, date, type, category, details, mode of payment, and amount. You remember these? They are the columns of my spreadsheet. And slices are like filters. You can slice your table, or you can filter your table based on conditions using slices to create some more dynamic tables or more user specific tables. Okay, we have user settings. Now this allows you to make your app very dynamic, allows you to give users the option to kind of make changes to the app, so they can change the language and all those things. Once you do it right, you'll be able to give users the power to make some changes to your app. Then we have options. Options allow you to choose between legacy and consistent. There are two school of thought in terms of the kind of functions or how certain functions behave in AppSheet. So you can choose either the consistent way or the legacy way. I think you can read more to find out about this. We have UX. So over here, UX, under UX we have views. So the views are what you see over here. So when I click this button, it opens a form. This is a view. Okay, so this is a form view. You have several kinds of views in AppSheet, and if you need to create a new view for your app, this is where you come. We have brand, so you can choose between dark mode and then light mode. You can choose between various color themes for your app. This is where you can change the logo of your app. So let's say I don't want that, I want probably a calculator as the logo of my app. That works. Format rules is like conditional formatting in normal spreadsheets. It helps you to kind of format based on certain conditions of how your app will look. We have options, these general settings, the name of your table, where it's starting from, so on and so forth. And localize. Localize is also a very good aspect of the UX. So certain default labels or names can be changed over here. So probably I have no items over here as the default situation when there's no record in my app. I can choose to change this to no records made yet. So instead of no items, it will probably be read as no records made yet, and I'll probably do that somewhere here. Okay, so with that in place, we can move on to the next tab, which is behavior. Behavior has two main categories, but the main one is actions. So actions are buttons that trigger the app to behave in a certain way. For instance, this is an action button that allows me to make an addition. So when I click this, it opens a form view for me. We call that an action. Okay, so all these are behaviors, and then you can create them in AppSheet to help you do certain cool stuff, help you move from one point to another point, help you to add data. There are like a host of them. So let me give you an example. If I create a new action, these are all the kind of actions I can do. I can copy this row and edit it. I can export this as a CSV. I can do a whole lot, go from one view to another view, delete a row, go to a website, open a file, start a phone call. The amazing things you can do with actions. We will explore all those during this sessions. We have automations. Automations are like actions, but then they are triggered by events. Unlike what we have here, where I have to click a button. So in transactions, you see I have to click a button to trigger a new form. But then automations, I don't need to click the button. Probably when an event occurs, the form will just open up. Probably when I make a new entry, a new form will open up. That's an automation, and that's how different it is from an action. And then we have security. So does a user required to sign in before they use the app, so on and so forth. And then we have intelligence, and AppSheet can do amazing things. You can create what we call predictive models. That's, you give AppSheet data and it can predict based on your data. We call that machine learning. Smart assistants. In this case, you can actually use your voice to control your app. And then you have OCR models. In this case, AppSheet can extract data from images, which I think is very cool. It's ridiculous. So when you create the models right, you can do so many things with AppSheet. So that's basically a quick run around of the AppSheet environment. I know it's not substantial. I think a lot of information has been thrown at you right now, but which is fine. The whole point of this series is for you to kind of take it slow and then understand what each part of AppSheet does with this case study we are going about. So let's go back to data. Once you load your data into AppSheet, the first thing you need to do is always check out the data types. You need to set the data types right to make sure that it's behaving exactly as you expect it. So at this point, I'm going to switch to my Money Matters app I've completed, so that you have a feel of what we expect each column to do, or the kind of behavior we expect each column to demonstrate or show in order for the app to behave appropriately. So let's go. Okay, so this is my Money Matters app I have created. It's very simple. So over here, I have my Money Matters app over here. I have a summary page, I have a transactions page, and a mode of payments page. Currently, I am the summary page. I have the month we're operating in. I have the income that's been generated for this month, 89 Ghana cedis, and the expenditure I've made, which is 35 Ghana cedis. So currently, I'm making a gain of 54 Ghana cedis. So in a Money Matters app, I'm coming to the transactions page. Okay, now when I click on the add button, it gives me, you realize that the dates have been pre-filled. Okay, so the user is not supposed to input the date, it's supposed to come automatically. That's the first thing you should know. You realize that for the type column, the user has the option to select whether it's an income, expenditure, or transfer. Okay, now once you select income, these two pop up: category or purpose. Okay, so in our case, it's just purpose, it's just category. I'm sure it's just category. Then you realize we have employment, we have friends and family, business, investment, and other. Okay, now when I select expenditure, these are different. You see, you have personal, social, work related, religious. They are different classes of category, so they are dependent on what I select, income or expenditure. They change. Then we have mode of payment, which is also a drop down. And then you have your details column where you can type what you want. Okay, we call this a text data type. And then we have an amount where you can input the amount and then you should be fine. So that's how our app is supposed to behave in terms of the columns. So let's go back and let's try and set this to behave this way. Okay, so over here, back in our app editor, we'll go to columns, which gives us access to the various columns. So there are two ways to do this. I can select this like I just did, or in my table, when I select a table, I can click view columns, and it takes me directly to the columns. Okay, both works. So over here, I have my columns for my spreadsheet. I have ID, I have date, I have type, category, details, mode of payments, and amounts. Okay, so let's take each one by one. Realize row number is an add-on or an additional column that AppSheet adds to every table. It helps AppSheet tracks every entry by their row numbers. Okay, so you shouldn't worry too much about what this is. So ID is the first one. Now ID is my key, so you can see the key over here. Let me just point that out over here. This is the key. So currently this column is showing in my spreadsheet, okay, but then I can choose for it not to show. So you realize in my preview app there was no column like ID, okay, so I can choose this app not to show, but I'm going to leave it over here so you can see what it means for it to show and not to show. What I'm going to do is I want to show you something, and that auto compute initial value, you have what we call unique ID. So when you add an ID column to your table in AppSheet, AppSheet is going to assume that that column is your key, and it's going to place this formula that they call unique ID, which allows AppSheet to just generate random ID numbers for your transactions to help differentiate them from one another. They are unique, so you don't need to worry your head about generating unique IDs. But in the event where you want your IDs to be following a certain pattern, then you have to come and put in the formula yourself over here. So in this case, we don't need to worry about this. We just leave it at that. In the event when AppSheet doesn't recognize this as your key, you can just input this formula in the initial value section under auto compute, and then you should be fine. Okay, so currently when I click on this, realize that I have some random alphanumeric characters over here, which AppSheet has generated for me. Okay, but I don't need the user of the app to see this column, so that's what I'm saying, that you can just click uncheck this, that's the show, so that it doesn't show in your app. It just starts with the date. Good. The next thing I'm going to do is my date column, I'm going to set it to a date time. Okay, so when I set it to a date time, it takes the date and the time, not just the date. So I'll click here. Now I'll go to auto compute, and you see once you set your data type as a date, AppSheet is going to create a formula. We're going to use the today function to always generate today's date. But then we need something more specific, not just today's date. We need today's date and the time. So we're going to use now. That gives us exactly this moment. That's date and time. So now I save this and I hit done. Okay, so if I check this now, you realize that. So let me save this first. Okay, so this is probably your very first warning. So there are two types of warnings in AppSheet. If you come to the info section, it will show you a warning. Now it says that because you've set your key to do not show, you can't search for it within the app, which is fine. Okay, so for the orange warnings, they are fine. Your app can work with orange warnings. However, for the red ones, your app cannot work and it's going to break. So whenever you have to look out for red warnings, those ones are going to break your app. Okay, so let's move on. So this is going to go away, so don't worry about that. So like I was saying, when I click on dates, now it shows me the date and the time. Okay, great. The next thing I'm going to do is to set the type for the data type for the type column. This is going to be a selectable list, so we're going to use enum. Okay, now when I click on this editor, I have the options to provide the options for my list. So I click add, and I'm going to click here income, and then add another one, expenditure. So I have the options of providing several options that you can select from, and then also over here I can choose whether I want it to be a drop down, stack, or buttons. So I'm going to show you how each of them look. So drop down, so buttons, for example, I hit done. Let's see, this is what we call buttons. Let me go back over here, change this to stack. This is stack. Okay, they are stacked one on top of the other. And the next one is drop down, which is basically a drop down list like this. So however you want them, you choose based on how you want your app to look. I want it to be a button. I want it to be buttons, just like I had it in my preview app, so I won't do that. Okay, the next one is category. Category is going to be an enum, okay, where you can select. But then it's kind of interesting because you realize for category, you want the selection to be based on the type. If it's an income, you want a specific list of categories that you can select from. If it's an expenditure, you want to show a specific list of categories you can select from. So let's see how that is done. So when you go in here, you're not going to provide your list over here because this is going to be run by a function. So you come to data validity. Now, in data validity, under valid if, you can provide either a condition, which is yes or no, or a list. Okay, I'm going to do both. So we're going to use the if function. So if, okay, open bracket, my type, now type is going to be placed in square brackets. Every column you place in square bracket, tab to select, is equal to income. Okay, this is what I want. So list, and I'm going to state the list of items I want. So I want you to provide me employment as a category for income. I want you to provide me business. I want you to provide me investment. So you can place in as much as you want. Let's put others over here. So you are free to add to the list. So this is going to come for income. So when you select income, these are the lists of items you get. Now, other than that, what do you want? So if I don't select income and I select expenditure, I want this list. So I want maybe I want social expenditure, or it's a personal expenditure, or it's you need to put them double quotation. That's very important. Academic, or it's a work-related expenditure, or others. Right? So we have this. So we have if type is equal to income, I want this list. Other than that, I want this list. So once this is validated by AppSheet, I just hit save, and I have this over here. Okay, now I can hit done. Okay, so what this means is, let me save this. So when I select income, I have employment, business, investment, and others. However, when I select expenditure, I have social, personal, academic, work-related, and others. Okay, so I can classify my income or expenditure based on these categories. Great. Now, details is a text type, or the data type for details is just text. So over here, I just expect the user to be able to give much more description to their income or expenditure lines. Now, mode of payment currently has been set to price, but I can change that to an enum. Okay, click on the editor, and then I'm going to input the various modes of payment. So I have cash, I have mobile money, and then I have bank over here. So I'm done. So this is going to be a drop down, this category. So currently it's buttons, but I can change that to drop down. So I have it this way. Fantastic. Okay. The last bit is my amount. I want to set my amount as a currency. So I can just click on this and then set this to price. However, it's important that I make sure that it's reading the right currency. Okay, so over here, sometimes it's going to pick up dollar, but then if you use it often and you set it to no currency, by default it's going to use no currency for most of your apps. So currently it's no currency. So once I'm done with this, I can just click on save. Okay, so by this point you should realize that your warning is gone off. Okay, so I have date, time, I have type, category, details, mode of payment, and amount. Now, to ensure that I do not make entries in my app without filling certain columns, I'm going to set some of them to required. Okay, so currently just the key that's required. The dates, I don't think I need to set it as required, but I need to set the type as required, and you see this asterisk on it whilst you set as required. So category is required, Details. I don't think details should be required. If you don't have any details, you can just leave it as that. But mode of payment should be required. It's very important. And then amount. Save your app without an amount. Okay, so there it is over here. So that means I cannot make an entry into the app without providing the required columns. Okay, with that done, you're basically done. Okay, so let's make an entry. So let's see income. So the category is business. Let's say sold some goods to Kwame. What was the mode of payment? How did you receive this? I received it via mobile money. How much did you receive? I received 55 Ghana cedis and save. Okay, so this has been saved over here, and you see over here it has been saved. Fantastic. Now when you go to your spreadsheet, you should have your first transaction coming in over here. Beautiful. So you see the unique ID. You don't see it in the app, but then it comes into your spreadsheet. Daytime and all that you have set in has come into your app. Now let's set this up right before we end today's session. Okay, so currently I really don't like the deck view. It has its purpose, but for me this one doesn't fit. So to move to the UX running this particular view, all you need to do is come below your app, click on view, and then you have the UX running. So this is the UX editor. So we're going to go through this intensively throughout the session. Okay, but basically this is the name of your view, transactions. I can change this to something else and it'll still be fine. Now currently we're running a deck view. There are several views you can run: calendar, deck, table, gallery. But in this case I want to use a table view. It looks more like a spreadsheet view, so something like this. So I have my transaction, the type, the details, the mode of payment, and the amounts. Okay, I can also, so it's currently sorted by dates, which is fine, but it's grouped by category. So you see business as one. I want to group this by type, so it's actually income instead of business. And then what I want to do is, instead of counting the number of transactions, I want to sum the amounts. So under group aggregates, I'm going to click sum amounts. Okay, then we have this. So we have income 55 Ghana cedis. The last bit I'm going to do is I'm going to take off the columns that I really do not need to see at a glance, like the category and the details, probably the mode of payment. So what I can do is, maybe under column order, I'm going to set the columns I'm interested in. So the first thing I want to see is probably the date, which is very important. I also want to see maybe the details as well. I want to see the details as well. So details. Okay, so I have currently just date and details showing. And the last thing I want to see is the amount. So click this. Now click amount. So these are the three columns I get to see, which are the most important columns I'm interested in. So that's it. So if I record another transaction, let's say expenditure, and I record maybe let's say personal expenditure, and purchased internet credit or data. Mode of payment this time was cash, and it was 20 Ghana cedis, or let's say 200 Ghana cedis. I save this. Okay, so you realize that I have to save this first. It's important to always save your work, else you'll not be getting up-to-date feedback on what you're doing. Okay, so here we have income, that's the amount. We have expenditure, that's the amount. Okay, so basically you are done. So you can actually use this app to record your income and expenditure transactions, and then you should be fine. You have your total income, your total expenditure. But the goal is to make this app very useful. So at the end of the day, we want to have something close to this, where we have our summary page, we have our transactions, and then we have our mode of payments, chats like this. So for now, we're going to end over here, and then hopefully in our next meeting, we're going to go on to how we can have a mode of payment for our app, tracking all transactions relating to cash and how much balance you have so far, and so on and so forth. So thank you very much for joining me for this session. I hope you learned a lot, and hopefully I'm going to see you next time as we continue to build our money matters app. Thank you.